In tonight's episode, we're going to talk about how a game ends. We're going to talk about the differences between determined game length and end game trigger conditions. So, kind of the difference between a fixed game length and a variable end game length. And in the comments, if you could, throw in there which of these two, fixed game length or variable game length, do you think provides a more satisfying arc for the players? Uh, so like either tension of a variable game or the nice smooth predictability of a fixed game. Which one do you think provides the most satisfying arc for the players?
I'll tell you, flipping the table is what I thought we were talking about. How to end the game, right? I mean, flip the table. Yeah. No, not tonight. All right, that's a different topic.
In tabletop simulator, that is one way to end the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so what are examples? Let's start by defining terms, right? Like that's usually like the best way to do these conversations is defining terms. So, what is fixed end game mechanic versus a variable end game mechanic? And let's provide some examples of each. Wayne, you want to take fixed end? Fixed end?
Uh, sure. Determined game length. So game lasts a set number of rounds, turns, or a time limit. And then you've got basically, usually it's a game where if someone, the star player finishes out the round, so everyone has the equal number of turns. Deterministic. So games that kind of do that would be White Castle.
My favorite.
Yep. Lords of Waterdeep. Everyone has the same number of turns at the end of the game. Seven Wonders. Those are all ones that kind of come to mind.
Finspan is also one.
Finspan, Finspan, Wingspan has a determinate amount of time period. Yeah.
Most of your Euros are going to be like that. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of Euros tend to have that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to Rob and talk about some of the variable end games. What does it look like? What does it sound like? And what are some examples of a variable end game?
So variable in game doesn't have a determined number of rounds. It's usually some mechanic in the game that determines when it ends, like maybe when a certain deck runs out of cards or a certain person hits a certain point on a score track. Um, Usually, it can lead to an uneven number of turns, which some people could like that because strategically that can be part of the game, but it's not. You don't know exactly when it's going to end, and it can be triggered at any time. Some games that use variable. Let me see here. I know there's a list of them here that I had referenced. Determined. If one of y'all have that handy.
Scythe is one, right? Scythe is
Scythe,
one where you have to
absolutely,
get a certain
yep.
number of stars to trigger the end.
5 stars inside.
That's
That's a good
Euro
one.
E and applies to variable game length.
Yeah, for sure.
Thunder Road Vendetta. That's another one. The game end trigger doesn't happen until one player is completely out of vehicles, and it adds the end finish line.
Right. One of my favorites, Terraforming Mars. So you got to move those 3 tracks, or well, 2 tracks, and then put all the oceans out. But once ocean tiles are out and those 2 tracks are maxed out, then it triggers the end of the game and last rounds of play.
Yeah, when the conditions are met.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about some of the pros and cons and benefits of them. Rob, I know you're a big Euro fan, so you got to have a favorite here. Which of these two do you enjoy the most? These
I have to, yeah, of the one I enjoy the most, I think, has got to be Determined, and I think the reason for that is, again, it gives me an idea of exactly how much time I've got to do what I need to do. So I can kind of plan out strategically and know what's coming. The end doesn't surprise me too much. I'm not a huge fan of the variable, just because I was thinking about this earlier. It may have to do with I play a lot of games with some super smart people in our group. There's a lot of smart players, a lot of people who played a lot of games, a lot of people who forward plan. They can think ahead 2 or 3 turns, and I kind of I'm more off the cuff. I like to pivot on things. I like to kind of take things as they come. And players who can affect the end of the game tend to do enough to get a lead in a game, and then they want to trigger it as soon as possible because they know once they have the lead, they've got it locked down. And usually when that happens, I'm in the middle of either building my engine or tinkering with whatever the mechanics are in the game, And when that game ends and I'm not expecting it, it really is kind of a flat feeling for me. It's like, oh, I didn't get to build up and pull off the cool thing I was going to do because I needed another round or another turn. So for me, it's being a Euro fan. I think it's definitely a determined game length. But go ahead, Wayne.
I was gonna say, like, I mostly almost entirely agree. I would just say, like, I think the converse of the opposite of that, though, is there are some determined length games like White Castle that just end before you actually,
Too soon.
like too soon, right? So it's like if there was it's so it's interesting is like, you have games that have an end game trigger and someone can get ahead. Like you said, they just barrel through and try to end the game as quickly as possible. But then you also have some of those determined end games where either you're not grokking it or other people grok that engine faster than you, and it just ends before you really even get things going. So that's kind of like I think a con sometimes of fixed length games is a lot of fixed length games always seem to end like a turn before you think they should, which is probably arguably part of the game design, right? Is like if it lasted as long as you needed, then there's nothing to master there, right? So you have to always, I think
everybody be doing everything.
I think I played Gollum this past weekend at the game day, and again, it was like another one of those things. Like, man, if there was a whole nother round of this game, then like you just got everything built and going, and then it ends, and you're like, is that, did I just not do it right, or do you have to just have the perfect min max to get your engine cranking before that final round because that deterministic ending's coming up.
But is that a bug or a feature, Wayne?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think it's probably a feature. It's probably a feature. It's one that I don't like in a lot of games,
Yeah, I want to touch on White Castle real quick because you brought White Castle up, and that's a great example because White Castle, it irritated me the first 4, 5, 6, 7 times I played that the game ended too soon, and I still feel it probably ends a little too soon. But now that I know that, I know I've got to maximize everything I'm doing. And then the other good thing, just to touch on while we're talking about it, with these determined game end triggers, is it makes the time of the game, how long the game is going to last, more predictable. Now, of course, that's based a lot on the people who are playing and people who are APN min-maxing, but I know that White Castle is probably going to be about a 45-minute game. It's not going to probably drag 2 or 3 hours because you've only got those 9 turns. And even though you're trying to do everything you can in those 9 turns, it kind of really lays out the foundation of it. In Scythe, I know Scythe is a bigger game. You're trying to do more things. And even though it's just placing 5 stars, you still know that that's probably going to take about 2 hours, depending on who you're playing with, maybe 2.5. But it's something you kind of know. Sometimes with the variable length games, I feel like I might be ready for an hour game and somebody pops it in 40 minutes. And I'm like, oh, well, gosh, that was, again, I feel a little flat because I didn't go where I wanted it to go. So,
but does that then lead though, like, so on the White Castle topic, when you watch the World Series of Board Games, which I didn't watch the White Castle one, but Daryl was at the game, we were playing Gollum and we were talking about Gollum ending early. He's like, I watched the White Castle, and he's like, at the final table. So these are like the best White Castle players, right? Or not the best, but pretty darn good, probably, right? He said the first round they all did the same thing. They all did like the well action, blah, 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 blah. And then so it's like, because it's a deterministic ending and because it's a very compressed game with a short, with only 9 turns and 3 rounds, it's a built in for the min-max players that there's like a optimal way to play. The right way to play it, right? And so there's that. When you have a deterministic ending, is there a right way to play? Whereas when you have an ending that can be triggered by different things, it allows a more expansive or explorator of the game.
Yeah, because I have some concerns about games that become the right way to play. Right, they're the games that, like, if you don't do these moves at the beginning, Scythe feels like one of them. Like there's a right thing to do at the beginning. Right?
Yeah, depending on your setup.
Bother me a little bit.
Yeah.
I would rather see games where there's definitely a wrong way to do it, right? But there's still at least a few options to do it okay. Right. So my hope is that with White Castle, what I've experienced is that there are wrong ways to do it. But there is no one determinate way to do it. The dice really dictate what you're going to do. So, like that dice, it isn't so much the actions that are available as much as what are my dice options. I can see why they went to the well so early. There's so much money. You're getting so much money right off the bat. If you're putting a high dice in the well, it's a 1. You're just getting $5 on a 6 pip die, plus usually 2 or 3 resources, and a daimyo seal. So it's like it's not a terrible action. Don't sleep on that.
Like max that out the whole first round, bam, 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 and then you have all the money and things you need for the next 2 rounds.
But what's some of the fun of the variable length, right? So that's all deterministic. Variable length, for me, what it adds is a social aspect to the game, where now you're having to watch what everyone else is doing. Is so-and-so about to trigger the end of the game? So I need to tighten up my engine and just get to getting goose and points out of this thing, right? Or am I on the verge of triggering the end game, but I know I'm not in a good points position, so I need to hold back on these end game conditions, maybe not place that next ocean when I know I can, so that I can eke out a few more points somewhere else. I love that piece. It brings people together at the table in a different way.
Yeah, I see the interaction, and I think it also can depend on the type of game. So we'll get into that as well. Depends on kind of what style of game or what kind of game you're playing. I think to some extent, but does that make it fun? I mean, it definitely ratchets up the tension. It definitely makes you pay attention, like you said, to what everybody's doing, because you got to know, is somebody getting ready to end it, or is somebody trying to, you can kind of tell sometimes when somebody's like, oh, I could end it, and a lot of people say that I could end this next round. But maybe I'm not in first place, so I got to eke out some more points. I'm gonna extend this another couple of rounds just because I don't think I'm gonna win it if we end it right now. So I don't know. It adds a different element of fun. Like I say, it's more tense probably. It's more player interaction. It's more paying attention. But I don't know that it makes it more fun for me. I don't know if that makes sense. But having to, like you said, like, no, I got to eke out those last few points. I would rather explore a little. I'd rather, have a little time to do some stuff, do some things.
4-hour game of terraforming Mars.
Then the converse though is like, all right, I could end it this round, but if I don't end it, I'm gonna get 10 more points in my optimal turn, and the guy that's in first place is gonna get 30. So screw it, I'm just gonna end the game, right? And then Rob, you're in third place, and you're like, oh, but if I had one more turn, I could have had a 70-port turn, right? Then you have the kingmaker, right? I'm like, I'm just gonna end the game.
I was a kingmaker.
I can't win. I can't catch up. I think it also speaks to, I think that's why like most Euros have a standard number of rounds, and some of your more thematic games will have and those games that kind of cross between theme and Euro, which is like Scythe and Terraforming Mars, maybe, where there's kind of Euro.
That will be done.
Yeah, Crusaders, where they're kind of Euro-ish, but there's theme there, and the theme is what makes it indeterminate time period. So I think that could be part of it too, is how you're doing it. I think what's interesting too is like, if you're like, for me, huge believer, if you're gonna have a set number of rounds or like an end game trigger, and then it just ends, either one, I'm not a fan of that. I want
the extra round.
I want everyone to be able to finish the round. I want everyone to have an equal number of turns. I don't like games that just end.
But even more than that, Wayne, I like the ones that it triggers the end such that next round's our last round. So we finish this round,
I like that.
and everybody gets that
one more
round.
Yep. I like that.
I think that's the nicest way to do it.
Yeah. Gives everybody a chance. So I agree. And don't get me wrong. I think there's a place for both styles. Like I said, it depends on the type of game you're playing. My dungeon crawlers, Frosthaven, Oathsworn, I don't want, I'm playing right now with the two, my two boys. We're playing Descent, a second edition Journey into the Dark. I think it's Journey into the Dark, but Journey into something. Anyway, I don't want that to be deterministic as far as when that ends. We can revive each other, we can heal each other. They call it standing up. We can stand up, a fallen friend. So it ends if we're all down, or if some objective happens eventually that either we meet our goal or the bad guys meet their goal. But in those heavily thematic games, you want them to kind of go where they go. You want them to last however long they last. And, so I think there definitely is a place for, like I say, for both styles. But again, the Euro in me says, give me tell me how many rounds there's going to be. Tell me how many points I can score, and let's do it. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's give our closing thoughts on determined game length versus end game trigger / condition. Final thoughts. I'll go first.
Okay.
For me,
Go ahead. Yeah.
I do enjoy my determined game length games. I think those are the ones where I get most mathy, where I'm like looking at, okay, I need to average out 3.5 points per action in order to, to do this right, to be able to. So if I know that I'm averaging lower than that, then I need to get higher next round so that I can get a good score. Those are fun. I enjoy that brain burn. But I really like my end game condition games. Those are, like Rob said, the most thematic ones. I'll leave you with Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle Earth. Just thinking that you're doing great. I'm over here beating on the map, and suddenly wifey's throwing the ring in Mordor. Or like, oh, I wasn't watching that track. That condition triggered the end of the game. Those are the games that I walk away with the most emotions and the most stories. So for me, I'm going to end it with end game trigger conditions have left me with the most fun feelings.
Well, I think I probably prompted the ending there with mine because I explained it there. But for me, again, I think being the Euro gamer at heart, it's those determined number of rounds, those determined number of moves that I'm going to get. I can see the end coming, so I know, hey, I've only got 2 more rounds, or I've only got 2 more plays of cards to finish off what I need to do. And so it's the thinky part that I enjoy. I do like the theme in some games, but for me overall, being a Euro gamer, I think that's what brings it home for me. And so I'm voting for a determined number of rounds.
Break the tie, Wayne. Break the tie.
I know where we're going. I hope.
Yeah. Well, it's probably
going to be
determined. It's determined. Yeah. Although, I mean, be honest, like I think when I think of all the games I own, the majority of them, or a large percentage of them, are X number of rounds, right? But then you have equal number, not equal number, but I have a decent number of, like, those campaign games and the end game trigger that have an extra round. And so you think about like Ticket to Ride, right? Is not a set number of rounds, kind of an end game trigger because it's the person that goes to lower trains. And right. Pandemic, yeah, there's end game triggers that running out of the deck, but generally you're going to finish the game before you run out of the deck. So I don't mind games like that, and certainly I like Scythe and I like Terraforming Mars, and there's plenty of other games that have indeterminate rounds. But generally speaking, I'm a Euro gamer that likes thematic games. I think so. Yeah, I'd probably go with the determined number of rounds.
You're on the winning side.
In the comments,
right choice.
Make sure you're commenting what yours are. We'll read them here in a moment. But before we do that, we will open up the phone lines. 813-618-7099 is the phone number here. When you call in, you get to take over the show, and you get to bring the topics to us about what you got going on gaming-wise. Again, phone lines are open, 813-618-7099. Call in. Make it a call-in show. Behind me is our call-in board. As you can see, there is nothing on the board.